Amy, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you. Thank you.
Perfect, we can hear you, so we're good there. Just to let you know, I'm not sure who else may be joining us via Zoom. Our council member had a personal appointment conflict, so he's potentially going to be joining us from Zoom. And then Lori, our chair, is under the weather, has no voice, so I'm not sure if she's going to be Zooming in or not. But otherwise, we have a quorum, so we'll let our vice chair drive the bus.
Okey dokey. So you already called, I said call to order, right? Do we do a roll call?
Not formally, but.
Okay, so we've got Larry, David, Eric, and myself.
Yeah, Amy, you should be able to see everybody on screen. We're pretty well captured here.
Okay, so did everybody review the minutes? Any questions or comments?
I move to approve the minutes.
Okay,
Second.
all right. Public hearings, none,
We don't have
committee.
to vote.
Oh, we have to vote. Do we have a vote to all those in favor of approving the minutes? They say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those are approved. Oh, is that good?
That's good.
Okay. Go to item 3,
Public hearing.
public hearings. None. All right, committee business. Boss building discussion. I do not believe there's any updates as far as I'm concerned.
I'm just not allowed to take anything off the agenda, so I keep
Keep it on.
it there, just to keep it in front of everybody, so.
It did come up in the DDA today, kind of anonymously. But that's about it. So,
Is there
nothing.
anything you can share on that then, since we're on that discussion?
Well, the
Okay,
DDA went over their bylaws. They have a new chairperson now, John. Yes. And so he reviewed the bylaws in the DDA meeting today to go over what they may or may not be able to do as a group. And one of the bylaws mentioned something about assisting business owners in preservation of properties, something along that line. And so the building was named anonymously as a structure that might benefit from some help from outside sources, possibly the DDA. So that's what it came up, but it was not mentioned by name, but I think everybody knew which one they were talking about. So
Okay, so they didn't label,
they did not call it the Boss Building.
okay,
No. No, but
you're pretty confident.
pretty
that's what they
confident
were
that's what they were
referring to.
talking. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
great, so we'll go with nothing new.
nothing new. Okay, David's turn, poster.
Vice Chairman's first in line.
Graphically, it's looking very pretty, Dave.
That's what counts the most. Thank you for saying so.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Dave.
Everybody is balanced nicely.
Mhm, mhm.
Really is.
What has happened is he went through the notes from previous comments, addressed those comments where it made sense, and then Steve Pluth has done a little bit of editing and suggesting with me, and I'm not sure, just tweaking a little bit, part of which was to get darker on the colors
boxes.
framing the text so that you could read it.
Mhm.
As I was sitting there, trying to go through it, and I couldn't really read it. I said, or do something. And I noticed that if we get it darker, it would be add to the contrast. contrast to get, so we went through a couple of versions. One of them darker there was a little bit stark and too contrasting. This seemed to be enough to read it and not too much to overpower the sense of graphics.
And the font looks like it's little bigger, for the blurb under each of these
We went
labels.
through-
It's looking much more uniform, easier to read.
Yeah, more sharp.
Yes.
Yes, it looking a little more organized than this, helps the readability of it. And that was part of the editing is, getting a little more cryptic with some of the graphics, so tick it out, or text rather. Ticking out a couple things that just didn't need to be there, so that we could get a more uniform size going. So, yep, that's the objective.
And so for comparison, I got the one from last month with this,
Yes.
with me, so. Yeah, no, the text in those individual boxes makes a huge difference, I think. Yeah, nicely done.
Are we considering this complete?
That is up to the committee to decide on that. I'm offering it as complete, subject to approval by this committee.
I so approve. We have to have approval of the second. No, we don't need a second.
Do we, I don't know, do we?
Need a second for the approval of this, just to make it official.
Sure.
Second.
Eric seconded, okay.
Okay, Templeton Cemetery Restoration.
Okay.
Oh, all approved, say aye.
We'll get you a digital copy for printing. And they haven't ran any sample sizes of larger poster size, but intent is to succeed at making it work on 11 by 17 for economy printing.
Okay.
So all in favor of approving the poster, say aye.
All right.
Aye. Am I allowed to say that?
Yes.
Okay.
I have never seen, I have a conflict of interest.
Okay. Okay, so Templeton. That was quite the adventure, getting that done. I think you guys have seen the pictures that Steve sent. I have like a couple extras just to show, oh, receipt, got a receipt here. For the lime material that we use to repair the lime material that we use to repair the Templeton stones.
Okay.
Oh, I think wasn't that not mentioned at the last meeting?
I just have no memory, that's all that means.
Okay, but I will give that to you in
I
a
think
second.
it was.
Yeah, that's all that means is just like, just a memory.
Okay, so you all remember that this is what they looked like when we arrived. The actual Templeton one was in two pieces. This one belonged over here. This one here. This one's the, this is Anna Lacey's headstone, and there's another person. There's two, Anna Lacey and David Workman on this one back here that ended up over here. It was in three pieces. The base was where it was originally placed, but we had to get the other two pieces over to there. And so we put Humpty Dumpty back together again. And that was just showing that it was indeed in two pieces. And so we glued it together last week. And then on Monday, we went back and put in this lime material. So all of the chunks, let's see if I have a picture. Well, that's what it looked like last week. So after we glued it together, there were still all of these big chunks that were out of it that have long since been gone. And then we went back this Monday and fixed that. And so that's what it looks like today. And we went there today again to just look at it, and it looks really great. So we've gotten a lot of compliments from the golf course. They were incredible to work with. They actually let me drive a golf cart yesterday. The first day we went there last week, they let Steve drive his truck on the golf course and up the hill and across a fairway. So he took it as far as he could on a golf cart and then straight away off the fairway, right up the hill. And we really needed it that day because we were there 6 or 7 hours that first day. It was a big day. We did that only because we didn't want to push our relationship with the golf course any more than we needed to. So we stayed there all day. We had the shelter set up and moved it. I mean, there were some comical moments, but we did it and we're really proud of what we did. And so Lori was asking for names of people to officially thank, and Pat Hill is going to be writing an article about it.
Okay.
So she'll be putting something in the newspaper where all the appropriate people are thanked publicly. But the manager and all of his staff out there were exceptional. And thank you, Eric, for doing all of the preliminary connections, because they just were great people to work with.
Yeah, I'm glad.
Yeah.
I'm glad I could help, and thank you guys for what you've done.
The thing that I found really cool was you can't really see it on this, you can't really see it, and you can't see it in real life either. But there's an inscription on the face of this, right here. You wouldn't know that it's there, but yesterday we got a piece of wax paper and traced it. And this is what the inscription says. It was on Anna Lacey's portion of the stone, which, Mother, thou hast gone and left us, thou so gentle, kind, and true, never more to love and bless us, for you passed beyond the blue. It took us 3 etchings to get to that,
Wow.
Oh, good.
word by word, but that's what it says. And I thought that was pretty cool. Steve has found another site there. He knows the name of it. It's actually pretty close in proximity to where these were located. He found it on Find a Grave. He knows the name and is ordering additional headstones to take out there. So there's going to be one that he actually knows the name of, and then others that are unknown. And he's still working with Colorado School of Mines to get them down there to locate all of those graves. Those will all have unknown stones on them, and at the moment he's purchasing those stones, but if there's any money in the budget to purchase those stones, or if there's a way to do any kind of fundraising, there's other things he would like to do out there, such as fences and that sort of thing, all requiring money. The owner of the golf course, and I don't know if it was the owner or Silas, the manager, but they would like to put a plaque out there. So there's other things that will be coming in the future, but we got a lot of interest as people were coming up there looking for their golf balls.
Yeah, it's not safe, is it?
No, you need hard hats up there.
Yeah.
We got about six balls that came in our way, one very close. The rest were kind of wonky, but people didn't really even know they were up there. Yeah,
Thanks to you and your good work.
it was a lot of fun. The golf cart experience was especially fun. So this is the receipt for the material that we used to prepare that stone. And we will also be using the same material out of the city of Woodland Park. And you can reimburse me for that. And I think hopefully we have enough money in our budget to do that. I think Lori mentioned last meeting that she would want us to go ahead and request that reimbursement. It might be in the minutes.
So it's actually your credit card that this went on?
I've already reimbursed Steve. Steve paid for it, I reimbursed him.
Okay. Okay.
If that's a problem, then you can just reimburse him directly and he'll just reimburse me.
send me an additional email
Okay,
if you can, that basically says that.
okay,
Yeah, it's all about the paper trail.
yes.
Yeah,
Sorry, and I printed that on a scrap piece of paper.
yeah, no, because the problem is like 3 years from now, if an auditor's coming through, to have an obvious paper trail,
Yes,
you know, as to what happened and why.
yes,
Yeah,
okay,
so that's,
okay.
that's all I'm after. So, beautiful, beautiful pictures, beautiful work.
It was very rewarding, just very hot out there. Yeah,
You're doing it in the height of summer, that's for sure, during a heat wave.
I know, I still don't know how we got those two stones from point A to point B, but somehow we did. Oh, I know how we did it. He had one of those dolly things. We put it on the dolly and rolled it over. But he even brought his lawnmower, and so we cut the grass and everything up there.
Is there some kind of historical file someplace to keep these as notes to HPC?
We do in our files, I think it's in under projects, there's a file for the city cemetery and then one for Templeton. Where we've been, you know, putting all the before and after pictures and stuff that these folks take. So I'm not sure that I've got, these are fresh pictures, so
Yeah,
I've not seen them come through.
I can send you,
That'd be
I'll send you
great.
the JPEGs.
Yeah, that would be wonderful.
I have like 60 pictures, but I'll just. whittle it
You can
down.
edit, that
Yeah,
would be good. But I'd happily take a couple on, you know, each of the stones that you're working on.
So that chunk of concrete.
Yes.
He knows what belongs there.
yes,
It's incredible.
and he knows from a picture from 1954. I don't know if you saw that picture.
She surveyed this one here.
It was from a picture similar to that showed both of the stones. And he actually has a witcher, I don't know what you call it, one of those. witches.
Dowsing rod.
And he witches it also and finds graves that way as well.
Wow. Yeah, there's some indentations too. You can
There's
see the grave.
indentations, but the witcher thing that he uses locates them as well.
Yeah, that's pretty
We
cool.
use it out at the city, I don't, I have too much magnetism that
Yeah,
doesn't
it
work for me.
either.
It does nothing. I can't make the things turn, but he can make it turn.
Is he using a wire or willows?
It's
or-
a piece of copper. I have a picture of him doing it, him witching it. Or I don't know if you call it witching, but,
I think so.
I've heard it referred to that way before.
oh, yeah, there's another, I don't know if you saw that picture. But, so we actually stood where we think that picture was taken and just kind of said, okay, that stone's there, that stone's there. And then witched it out at that point.
I'm highly confident I don't have that. I do not have that.
This one,
This, from the 50s, that
Oh,
picture in
okay.
that file.
okay, I'll make sure I send all that stuff to you.
Yeah.
And it was facing due east, just like we suspected, so it was pretty cool. They did it right back then.
I think it was last year, the last time we got done with a poster, you know, you guys had asked me to do the presentation to the city council. And I think it was at that same meeting where I also did a lot of before and after slides from the work you guys were doing at the city cemetery.
Yeah.
Maybe it was a different time, but I know I've done that before. So when you guys are ready, I'd be happy to do that again for you all to council on the work at Templeton.
Well, there are a number of, you know, step-by-step pictures that shows what it took to get them fixed. And we were just really happy when we went out there this morning to see how much better the Templeton stone looks with that.
I didn't know
Extra
it went
line.
together. I was bummed out that it was two separate
There's
pieces.
two
That's
separate
cool.
pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. It was 2 separate pieces. So that's it for Templeton for the moment. Other than I think Lori wanted to send the golf course a thank you note. So will we just wait for her to come back and do that, or next month?
Staff can follow up with her.
So the manager's name is Silas Beck.
We've been working with him on
Okay,
something
good.
completely unrelated, so.
Okay,
um,
but his staff was also amazing. It's him and his entire staff. Every single person we met was very accommodating.
Okay,
Like way more than we even thought. Just the fact, I mean, just the fact that they let him drive his truck across the fairway and it left marks. But today there were no marks. So all the rain and everything that came through, because he drove it up and then he drove it back. Those marks have since gone, but I was really, really shocked that they let him do that. It would have been nearly impossible to do if they hadn't let him do that because of the amount of equipment we needed. I mean, we were gonna call you and ask for an ATV.
There you go, well,
Yeah,
maybe next time.
but it
We have
would have taken
trailers
us
and-
10 trips just to get it over there.
Yeah, I got a trailer for it too, so I'd like to see that.
Yeah.
sometime.
Yeah, you can easily get to it without walking on the fairway, as you know.
Yeah, I walked from
Yeah.
Lucky Lady,
Yeah, that's what we actually did that this
but
morning.
now without
Yeah,
carrying anything.
yeah,
Yeah, I'll help. My wife's getting back tomorrow, so
good.
Yeah.
Good.
I would like to go out there and help and see it.
Yeah. Well, like I said, Steve's got other lofty plans, but the
I'm glad
basic
fence
stuff,
would be, the fence or
you would like a
something.
little fence around each of those graves.
And yet we want that basket off of there, right? The frisbee golf.
Yes, we did not talk about that. It was 2 Frisbee guys that actually helped us place this stone.
Yeah,
They
well,
just happened to be up there frisbeeing, and we asked them to come over when it was time to get this one down. A couple extra hands came in handy.
that's
so,
nice.
Yeah, they just happened to be there and we asked them to help, so. Okay, so that's Templeton. So David, now your turn again for historic designation of 107.
Still a live project and working with the CJ and Karen have been good enough to meet and try to help assist in finding a conforming planning definition to work with them. They're struggling with some undisclosed roofing issues and so on, so that's slowing them down as far as their affordability to do what to go with the longer term intentions. And we'll see what gets scheduled, it works for everybody, chances are you have to make it any time, lots of things going on for that job. So it's live, but not,
Still
That's all.
alone.
yeah, but there was
Probably
building,
next week.
placeholder.
By next week.
I know I've seen CJ in communication with the new owner trying to set up a meeting.
Yes, I
time,
saw
so.
that those were coming through and you copied me on it, so that works.
Christola Bridge. Okay, so what I know about Christola Bridge is Steve made inquiries with Dan Williams this morning regarding the progress of the grant that Teller County is submitting for the restoration of that bridge, and Dan has yet to return. He has returned Steve's email about the inquiry, but has no report on how the grant is going at the moment. But Teller County is working on that grant. And then this is Steve's newest project. The Pikes, this is a replica of the actual signage that was all along the Pikes Peak, peak to peak, ocean to ocean highway. And so his new hope is to have these start popping up. They were at every mile marker. But he would be really happy with every 3 mile marker.
Anymore. Really?
But he would like to see these start going up somewhere. And I don't know if that goes through the county, probably.
What road is it on?
It's the same road that the Christola Bridge is on.
That's county
So it is county, but he just wanted you guys to see this.
into the city.
Yeah.
There's a little bit of city.
Well, it's gonna pass into El Paso County at some point too. Line is pretty close.
Yeah.
Not exactly.
So I don't know what his plan is. He just wanted everybody to see.
I think it's great. It's nice that he did the replica complete with rust and all the other scars.
That looks so authentic.
I know. It is the
But
actual.
when we could talk to Road and Bridge, right? I mean, Fred Clifford or Brian Kincaid would be the ones that would tell you if you could put those up or where.
Well, that would be what he would want to know, who he's supposed to talk to, or who should be talking to
I
them.
would be glad to talk to them.
Out of respect for the county's own historic preservation committee.
Oh, yeah, we're city.
Yeah, my thought is to engage that group and then into the individual county department that then oversees placement of stuff like that. But it might be helpful to have that committee saying, yes, we want to see this happen,
Yeah,
that they can help advocate within the county for y'all.
well, he's pretty chummy with Dan Williams, so he should really go to Dan and talk to him about that. 'Cause, all right, I'll let him know.
Yeah, he does. Yeah, he was just telling us about his discussions with Dan, listening to Dan talk, but so that's an excellent idea. Just go
Go
directly
straight to
there.
Dan, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so, now think about this, guys, because it's similar to somebody has an idea and they bypass this committee and they go straight to the mayor.
I was going to finish with that.
Yeah.
The question is how active is that committee? What are they doing now? There's been a question about whether anybody was doing anything.
I don't know, but it's just, it sounds like they were trying to get that committee up and going again. And this is where Lori would be helpful, since she seemed to have a better feel for what was going on with that. But just trying not to step on somebody else's toes accidentally. Yeah, to have reinforcements lobbying for the same thing too, as opposed to just Steve by
My
himself.
opinion is it should be on that, if anybody's working on it, lay it on them and say, do something for us, guys, but to take it the next step further and have something like we've got the items on the agenda, start finding a way to include contact with them. Got the liaisons, something like that, right? So it's active. Get some communication right here at the meeting, if possible.
Well, we've
I
talked
like it.
about that before,
Yeah.
interfacing with their group.
Mhm.
When that happened. So, I mean, I did talk to Dan when I met him a couple months ago, when he said that the that Teller County was reenacting their preservation committee. What's the process of communicating from group to group? But
We need Dave Martinek to come and share where he's at. He's the one spearheading it.
is he,
Dave Martinek.
I think that would be great to invite them.
would that be Lori who invite him, or who invites him?
I think Lori could invite him as a guest just to share where they're at. So we're not guessing what they're trying to do or how
Mhm.
far are they really?
And do they even want us to?
Do they want our support?
Yeah, yeah. So how do we communicate that to, is that just go in the minutes and it goes? on the-
Yeah, no, at the staff level, we can touch base with Lori and see about getting that outreach done. And then possibly having it show up as an agenda item this next time for ideally at least Mr. Martinek attending,
Mhm.
so.
Okay. Anything else on the Cristola? Not that I don't have anything else. Anybody else have anything? All right, that leads to state grant opportunities updates. No update.
No, you skipped a few things.
Did I skip something?
Just do wildlife,
Which one did I skip?
wildlife mitigation.
Are you looking at the right agenda?
I must be looking at the old agenda.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. I think I wrote on your copy.
That was for you.
Okay. Oh, okay, that's my item. Hey, so I saw this article in the paper about the $1 million grant for Woodland Park in Teller County to set up a fire mitigation plan. And this past Saving Places that I attended a session on fire mitigation plans for historic buildings. And not just historic buildings, but historic properties. And so it never occurred to me, and you may all know this already, but most of the firefighters that come in for wildfire are not local firefighters. They're from everywhere. And so they are not familiar with Woodland Park. So they have to come in and be told what buildings to save, what structures to save, what infrastructures to save by the local communities. And that's what I believe this grant is for. Or something similar to that, because that's certainly what they were talking about in the session, that there are grants available up to $1 million for communities to set up those plans so that in the event of a wildfire, when these crews come in and they're managed, they're not managed by our local fire marshal, they're generally managed by somebody who manages wildfires. And so they come in and they are greatly appreciative when they're given a plan on what they need to save and protect first. So I wonder if we can get involved in this process when this plan is being done from a historical point of view.
Okay, my understanding on that news article and that particular grant was it's funds to do mitigation of designated sites. And the sites that they were that are under that particular grant relate to city infrastructure, like well sites, water tank sites. So that particular grant acquisition was related to city critical infrastructure for the city. It wasn't based on what you're talking about. Yeah, the other funding in terms of, you know, the plan to mitigate and preserve, you know, historic structures. Like I said, that was really just critical infrastructure for the city, and it's very limited to specific sites. And it is actual, my understanding is actual fuel mitigation. You know, so whether it's, you know, making sure trees are appropriately hiked, you know, cleared off the ground, you know, those kind of things to help prevent the spread from actually running up to those structures.
Okay, so then that brings the question if we should be attempting to apply for grants that are specific to plans for protection of historic properties.
This is where I'm going to say yes, because it's a great idea. And I do think it's, you know, to further embrace everything we're working on and doing. The issue we are running into at the moment, and we haven't quite figured out how to consistently leverage our work plan in terms of what are we focusing on. And then there's that whole preservation plan that the state keeps wanting us as a municipality to put into place, that I think would potentially help us prioritize some of these other projects and such. So that's some of what we're struggling with at the moment is, well, I got this great idea over here. Oh, I've got this one over here. And you've got limited resources, especially at a staff level, which is why CJ's here, by the way. He's going to take more of a lead and serving this committee. But to get that so it's more strategic and focused, so that we're not always just going off in a new direction, because we need to finish things and keep them moving. And I'm obviously by myself not doing that great of a job this year, especially on the other grant that we're going to talk about. But so that's a bigger thing is, yes, this is stuff we should all look at, but where does it fit? How do we prioritize all those things that you can't work on everything at the same time?
So there has to be a plan to make a plan.
A plan to prioritize is kind of what it is, you know, that, okay, if that's the top of the list and that comes above any of these other projects, great. That's what we work on.
So
Or
So is this committee the one that comes up with the
Preservation plan.
preservation plan?
CJ started doing some research on that a little bit. Because of course I've not had a chance to dive into that too much, so I don't know if you're prepared to talk about that or if you'd like.
Yeah, I
to-
think the committee would definitely have a huge part in it. I think ultimately staff would put together the document, for you guys. But ultimately, I think, we get a bunch of input and it's gonna be a collaboration for sure. So we have some preservation plans from neighboring towns. We have one from Colorado Springs and Midturn. Let's see, Lafayette, the town of Windsor, so we have some good templates to work from. So, yeah, I think it's a great idea.
So just to be clear, so we have to come up with the preservation plan first and maybe include preparing a historic preservation plan for wildlife protection, wildfire protection as part of that plan. And then we go for getting grants to accomplish that. Okay,
Yeah, because.
so can you include that in your plan?
Yeah, and the plan, it's not like it's just, hey, we're gonna have a quick meeting and then I'll whip it up, because, these things are pretty intricate.
Yeah.
It goes over like general history of the town and, what its goals and objectives are. Every single one of these went through their own planning commission and city councils. So it's gonna take some time.
Oh, I understand,
For
because
sure.
when I started thinking about what, how do you prioritize historic buildings?
Sure.
How do you decide where the top 10 locations or something to protect? I mean, I wouldn't have a clue how to do that.
The other thing where that preservation plan becomes very useful is when you are applying for other grants out there. So often those granting entities and, beyond the state, especially if you're trying to leverage something else out there, they're asking, well, how does this fit into your plan? Why should we give you money for this? Are you sure this is a priority? That we see that a lot.
And a lot of it, I think it's not like very specific to like, hey, we're gonna protect the Roberts House at all costs, right? It's more of like generalization goals, right?
Yes.
Like create a foundational toolbox for execution of Midturn's historic preservation program. Well, how do we do that? We have some objectives here. Some, like meetable goals, The next one on this specific one is, public awareness for the historic preservation program and voluntary participation in the program, things like that. So, if you want to like protect historic sites, that could be a goal. And then underneath that goal, it's like, all right, well, let's jot down some objectives that we can meet and how do we get there?
Okay,
I
sounds like you
want
guys,
History Park in there for sure, because in History Park are the artifacts stored. And I mean, for the whole area, and there's not much fire protection in those buildings per se with sprinklers and all that. So that'd be a priority. History Park, where the archives are today, and the city has sponsored and encourages the History Park, and that's, in my mind, a number one, because that's in our building, we have all these artifacts stored and documented. So, and it's not a safe storage area per se, even though there's not a lot of forest around, but who's to know that? That would be number one for preservation in my mind, though, if nothing else, because of the artifacts that are stored there. That's just off the cuff. Plus the buildings, there's a few buildings historically like that. It's the artifacts in this historical building in the back. Because it's actually stored in an old log cabin with different siding, but it's just a log cabin in the back. It's not climatically controlled, there's no sprinkler systems. So years back, the goal was to have all things stored in a climatically area, whatever, high in the sky.
lots to talk about for sure.
Definitely.
Thank you.
Okay, so, cool. So you guys will kind of take it from here then. for the moment.
Yeah, I just think for the moment, maybe we can just add that as an agenda item and maybe next meeting when Lori's here, kind of create a plan for the plan, you know,
Yeah.
like I think we need some direction on, all right, where do we really start? You know what I mean? So just like Larry said, so, hey, that's great. That's a place to start, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and I got the email from Steve, what his input is on the preservation plan. So there's a lot going into that for sure. All right,
And that email came in after the packet went out, so I'm not sure if we copied everybody on it or not, but we can loop everybody in, so you're not feeling left out.
Steve David's on it, Eric's on it.
Okay, maybe I did go to everyone. Larry?
Mary, are you LB 730? Yep, you were on it, so,
Okay, so we did catch the whole group. Good.
yeah. That was a pretty interesting approach, I thought. Did you guys read it? Yeah.
Which is that?
Steve's idea of a preservation plan,
Oh, okay.
of just what to consider when you're thinking about it. I mean, it wasn't like thoughts. It's just thoughts. All right. That's everything for city wildlife mitigation, Bergstrom Park discussion. Anybody have any?
You saw at the top of the agenda and in the email, I reminded everyone that the DDA met this morning at 7:30 and the whole HPC was invited to attend to talk about reimagining Bergstrom Park, is I guess the way the DDA was phrasing it. But when I was putting all this together, all I knew was that they wanted to discuss the future of Bergstrom Park. So this morning, Steve Blute and then Linda was able to join the DDA meeting, but they did a work session and talked a little bit about the park and issues, concerns, ideas. Some people like bathrooms, some people hate bathrooms, trail connection, more parking, less parking.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, it was mostly just putting a lot of stuff out on the table. Keep the baggage building, that seemed to be more
Pretty unanimous.
consensual than anything else. And then just identifying this as with the changes that are gonna be happening with the Tava House Properties development, that they see this as an opportunity to do something more with that particular park was part of what they were talking about. Like most public projects, you know, they don't happen quickly or overnight. Cindy, the Parks and Rec director, was there and brought up needing to engage the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board to get their thoughts and comment and feedback on that. So at this point, it's more just this, hey, how do we get some, kind of like some of our conversations, how do we get some of this started? How do we come up with a better idea as to what to do with the space? And then I'll let Linda pick up some.
Well, and the thing that surprised me, and I've already talked to David about this, was the Tava representative, I can't remember his name.
Mark Weaver.
Mark Weaver. He wants to turn it into a parking lot. Which I think is a horrible idea myself. So I was glad to hear that the Parks and Rec department, because it really, to me, seems more like a landscape project as opposed to a ripping everything down and putting a concrete parking lot, even with trees and green spaces. I just think that is the worst idea that is known to man. But so I hope that we get that they really do bring in public comment like they said that they would. Because I think most people are going to be really sad to see that park change at all. That's my opinion. But how is it that Mark Weaver is kind of driving this whole parking lot idea?
You know, I'm not privy to the conversations behind the scenes for the DDA and what hits their agenda or anything like that. So I just know it from reviewing planning applications and such for the Tava House Properties proposed development. And definitely from at least a year ago, when they had the plan of development approved by the DDA and city council. We've been at a staff level talking about needing to address parking, to make sure they have adequate parking for everything they want to develop. And with the Tava House restaurant phase that's going through preliminary plat, that they're gonna start construction on, flagging that, that's nice that you've taken care of parking for phase one, but what about subsequent phases? And, I've been told they will address that when they get to those phases.
But it is city of Brooklyn Park property.
The park is, but like I said, from a staff perspective, we keep addressing it based on their, the Tava property.
Yeah. Well,
I think the biggest takeaway is that it was the first conversation of May.
yeah.
Good, excellent point,
I'll be
CJ.
leading the march
Well,
against
and like
parking
Lori
lot.
too, so I think it was nice to have you and Steve there to have a voice for this committee for sure, so.
I mean, I wasn't looking at it from a historical point of view, just how many cute little small towns do you go through, and one of the premium spots in town turned into a parking lot of all things? Just think that's a really bad solution. But David, you had an opinion too.
Oh, yeah, I got an opinion. A general question is, what do you get to do relative to a planning department? You've got ordinances to enforce. There's cooperation, but not control over DDA. How does this work? I got an opinion, but where does it go to from here is a major question.
DDA committee meetings are like these, where they're open to the public. So there is a section on the agenda for public comment. That you can certainly show up, and if you want to address the board, the DDA board, relay whatever you want to at that point. You have to be a little careful in terms of, are you speaking as an individual or representing the HPC committee?
Well, I'm not afraid to go individual.
But
I'm
I
not
just,
afraid of that.
I
It's a
just need
good
to make,
caution.
I just need to make that.
Protocol, political correctness is is
Well,
important.
we counsel all our boards that way, and even the mayor and city council, that they need to be very careful about, when they're representing their own individual thought versus speaking for council as a whole, or speaking, if the HPC votes on something and we got minutes to hand them, or, provide a policy statement and the chair is the one that delivers it, that's because it's gone through the protocol of this whole board saying, yes, we want to convey that message. So, like I said, the DDA is kind of a distinct board. I attend a lot of their meetings, but I don't provide staff support to that board the same way like we do to you guys or the planning commission.
From the other direction on it, though, it's obligated to meet city standards. When I was reviewing some stuff some years ago, design standards were in place, were approved and so on. And so where's that at when somebody says we're gonna make it all parking lot?
Well, it's land owned by the city. So you're needing landowner permission, even around the application and such. And then depending on what it happens zoning wise or permitting wise, that goes through our office from that perspective. I have no idea if a parking lot's a permitted use in that zone, but I can't imagine that going forward without city council saying that's the direction they want to see.
Ultimately, the city council would be the decision maker on that.
To say, yeah, they're kind of keeper of the property.
Well, it's important. It comes right out of it's coming right out of the chute as far as I'm concerned. I got an opinion from Linda. When we voted for the DDA for the principles that we're looking for a form of economic development downtown. And I personally find making it all parking lot is disgusting and really stupid planning when it really constitutes you need parking for a building lot there. My classic example, while we were struggling with this in years past, is it happened to be really hit me when I was going through Taos to say, we need a restaurant. We're late lunch here. where do you go on that? And we went by, plenty of parking. Where do we go? We go to the place that is crowded, it's a terrible mess, can't find a parking spot, that's where people want to be. And it goes against some parking principles. But the other thing to point out that should be a planning awareness of it. It is not an ordinance per se, but a planning awareness. Having anything over bare minimum parking goes against leads, sustainability, and general conservative greenbelt principles.
So you're saying less parking is
Less
better?
parking is
Okay.
better.
I just want to make sure I'm tracking with you. That's what I
Mhm,
heard,
sure.
but I just,
Well, I'm not much of a speaker. To have parking that exceeds the minimum approvable by the planning, whatever planning committee, or excuse me, planning authority is in charge of, is in violation of Greenbelt standards. I don't know if you knew that, but I had to know that to pass the tests on it.
which certification was that, Dave?
It particularly came up, it hit me on leads.
Okay, thank you.
It comes up again on articles, reviews, and sustainable projects across the country.
So how often does DDA meet?
Once a month, they're the same day you guys are, the first Tuesday of the month,
Mhm.
but it's 7:30 a.m.
Yeah. Because they challenged the public to show up and protest. Because there was one comment. Well, I mean, like Karen said, there's a lot of discussion about bathrooms. I had a personal opinion on that one as well, but, and when somebody said, somebody else in the group said, we need to make this public discussion, the answer was, the public's invited to our meetings. So that, I didn't care for that response, because how, I know this is not historic preservation, but I'm just trying to get some ideas on, does the public realize that the DDAs make having these meetings once a month, and that they're invited to these meetings and to make public comment? How is that, how,
Their meeting gets posted on the city website. Similar to yours, that the packet gets posted.
yeah,
And there's a Zoom link, just like there is for here, planning commission, or city council, or whatever.
So if you recall, the city manager did comment about needing to come up with some type of other community engagement around what happens
Yeah.
to that park. So that's on the manager's radar, this isn't just the DDA coming up with a plan, but it does need to involve engaging the community. One other thought or suggestion that I gave the manager after the meeting was, engaging, probably needing to do an RFP, but engaging a consultant to actually lead that whole plan development and public engagement process around how to revitalize, how to add value to that park area. So that's not a parking lot. But what else can we do with this space? Because I guess one idea or thought that Cindy had shared, and I don't know where this came up at some point, but the round thing there, that what if that was, like a splash,
SRT.
a splash pad, kind of, thing for the kids play in. But there's ways to potentially bring other life to that area.
This is all under parks over there.
It is a city park,
It is
so
a
it is.
city park.
Yes.
Like I'm not clear, I thought it was just city park, I didn't know whether it was under park or whatever.
I believe it's under parks because
Park,
it's,
city maintenance, but when we did our review last November with Frank and Bert, we visited that whole thing, and I thought, it is not inviting at all,
No,
and
it's
things are falling apart, who's in charge of seeing the maintenance of this whole thing, because I hadn't been there in a couple of years, and I thought, there's no invitation to even sit down here and take in the panorama or whatever, whether it be left or right. There's a, it looked like it was derelict in my mind, It didn't say, oh, welcome to Woodland Park here, have a seat or whatever. If that's a city park, fine. But that's, I thought, this is not what I truly expected after being there years back. We had they had a big sponsored event there and all entertainment happening right there. And it was an happening place. But to me, it just looked like a nothing. Why bother even look at it? Who's in charge?
Bill White. Is that what stimulated the objection to keeping a bathroom going? Is just maintenance?
No,
Anything
the
else?
police chief was there. He said it's a major crime scene. A lot of bad stuff happens there, but it just, that there's always a problem there. And Kelly, the mayor, also said it's a constant problem for the city.
Well,
What's going on
we
there?
did design for Acacia Park, which was struck. Haven is, he designed a little mini police station to go right in the park. Seriously.
Yeah, no,
And it's successful, it works, feels very comfortable. You see officers coming in and out. If you're on the right side of the law, you certainly have no problem with that. It's all friendly and going like that. So it's not, that sort of thing is not out of the question. I think they ought to take that part and give, have free picnics or something like the entertainment you were talking about.
Right.
Somebody, as you mentioned, the word sponsor, is have something where people show up, give something away or something like that, because that's the whole problem with that. But it goes right back against the whole reason we voted for the DDA to mention, and you mentioned they've got a mission statement.
Well, the city of Woodland Park has a mission statement in the city
Uh-huh.
chambers.
City of, you've got mission statements, you've got the reason you voted for it in the first place, you've got public coming into it. And yes, as it sits now, it looks deserted, doesn't look like you're supposed to be there.
It's advertised as a rest area, and that's what it seems like. to me.
it's Bert, city. Hey, I talked to the city engineer and,
Yeah, hey Bert, how's it going?
So
Anyway, I didn't want to interrupt you, but that's what I see as a rest area, because I've worked around there a lot, and there's no park, nobody eats at the picnic tables by the back, and then they cut out and they look at the Pikes Peak on that big round concrete thing there.
Such
Takes
a
a lot of
beautiful
space.
spot. It could be-
That's a spot,
It could be so incredible.
So this conversation here is a lot of what, a consultant could put together. It's like, how is the park perceived now? And then other ideas for what it could be, because it's all kind of intertwined in our conversation that we're having right now. That they are then able to take and translate those concepts and into, a potential design. That's a lot of what happens in those types of planning processes.
You're in a position to offer suggestions, at least you mentioned, is it a landscape architect we're talking about? Landscape architects and planners do get involved together, each other. They tend to do as they're asked, sort of.
That's where if you have a good RFP about what is the scope of work that you're after.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. Agreed on that. Perception of what the public is thinking is another thing, but to have some buy-in to that where somebody's going to pay attention to it. There's enormous investments put into the aquatic center public input, for instance, which was 100% totally ignored.
That's a different issue in terms
No,
of,
it's not if it's a public issue, but you hired a consultant, and you've got the marketing, and you paid for it. But to ignore it is, it's a pointless thing to offer people.
that's the political will to follow through on the guidance that they have solicited from the community.
Mhm.
Elected officials can make whatever decision they want to, and sometimes they honor what that is, and sometimes they don't. And I've seen that in multiple communities that I've worked in throughout my career. So that's part of where that stops or doesn't stop, is whether or not the electeds embrace what they were told by the community.
In this case, another tier of that in the DDA, a huge one there. As they are, they're a body of people who are very capable, very influential, and very much to make up their own mind what they want to do. That's just the nature of it. The good side of that is they can actually do something successful, they can get something done, where political wishy-washies do not. But whether they are interested in what a consultant has to say or not would be another issue. Anyway, I'd rather see a consultant paid than start buying pavement. Anyway, this is not necessarily important here, or put you, and you're listening carefully into this, I appreciate that about you. That suggestion conversation comes up. Speaking of this conversation, is there any truth to the rumor that the city manager is thinking you should replace the plants on the median strips with plastic plants?
I am not in that loop. I do not know, David.
I haven't heard that rumor.
I hope we don't hear it again, but,
I'm not in that loop.
okay, I was just
Yeah.
curious
I
since,
can get you in contact with someone.
oh yeah?
Yeah, I mean, our communications, I don't know her. Kristen, she is the staff liaison for Keep Woodland Park Beautiful Committee.
Oh, yes, yes,
And I
yes.
know they talk a lot about what they should do in meetings, so I think she'd be the one to ask. So
Okay.
her name's Kristen Higginbotham.
That's an interesting last name. Higginbotham?
Yep.
Higginbotham.
Higginbotham.
Higginbotham. Yeah. So,
I'm more inclined to keep working on the contracts I'm behind and responsible for, and not get politically motivated. Paving paradise and putting up a parking lot, which we discussed, got me out.
jacked up, what?
Got some palm trees out and making them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
From China. That says Woodland Park all over it, doesn't it?
Mhm.
All right.
So, related to the Berkshire Park conversation and discussion, is there anything this committee would like to specifically send back as a thought or a message? Or do you want to just participate at the next meeting and at that point speak up a little bit more, or what?
Yeah, I'm gonna start showing up at those meetings. I'm not gonna, I'm gonna start showing up at those meetings, but, they at least were supportive of keeping the baggage building there, which is good.
They were supportive that
Yes.
the city spent how many thousands to move that there. Don't want even bring that
I
up.
know, I was shocked that it even came up, that they were thinking
Here,
about moving it.
It has a new roof and there's some momentum of making it a museum, whatever, for the train. I mean, it's still on the table, yes?
Yes,
So, and this would be a focal point for sure if it became operational. And there's a human there,
yeah,
you know, they could monitor the restrooms, they could have a multi-title, whatever.
Yeah.
Museum tour leader and restroom monitor and park monitor or something like that. All that kind of stuff. So the potential's tremendous.
yeah,
So, what a word to say, forget it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, they were supportive of it staying, and they were supportive of it, being like a kiosk point where something is happening in there that's open to the public.
But my
Karen
message,
mentioned what we were thinking.
they need to clean it up, city needs to do something or whatever, the tidy whatever right now, I don't know, who's gonna know, but.
Well,
At one
and,
time, it was, I said, a going place, instead of having the entertainment in the park, it was over on that side of the highway, and events took place there.
Well, and the way we're structured, Cindy's team, they're more about recreational operations and not so much maintenance. And I mean like programming operations. So there's a whole other group called Fields and Grounds. They're the ones that actually mow the grass and stripe the fields and that kind of thing. So there's slightly different categories of folks that work on things. So the folks maintaining the buildings are not reporting to Cindy, which is part of where I guess things get a little wonky. So. So at this point, I guess initial thoughts are you just want to participate in the next DDA work session and kind of go from there. I'm not hearing any other like driving consensus out of this group at the moment.
Well, I think showing up at the DDA is number one, see what's going on, what their thoughts are. But am I showing up as a citizen or as a member of the HPC?
You should show up as a citizen.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
That's kind of what Karen was talking about too earlier, you know, like if you did show up as a member of the HPC,
Then I
you'd have to have something that you guys collectively put together, like
Yeah,
this is
which-
our statement,
Yes.
right? But you could go as a citizen of
I'm gonna go
Livermore.
as a citizen.
So,
Where do they meet?
The same day we meet here, but
Nowhere.
it's city council,
Oh, yeah, okay.
city chambers.
and so to CJ's point, a few minutes back was that this was just the first of many meetings today. So I can see where it's a little premature, maybe for this committee to come up with a more unified statement back in terms of, hey, we appreciate you wanting to do something, but this is the direction we would support.
How about an awareness statement just to come out to begin with, to the effect, something to the effect of, please honor and consider the investments in community investment that's been put to the park over the years. Something to that effect. See,
I think it'd be very important if the HPC put together a statement that it really revolved around historic preservation.
Yeah.
Not just, you know,
Well, it is Bergstrom Park. That can't get much more historic than that. But I agree with that.
Well, and I appreciate what you're
if
saying,
it
Dave.
comes from this committee, yes, it has to relate to what
right.
we're supposed to be here for.
Yeah.
Right, good point.
I appreciate your statement, Dave. My concern is that it's very broad and somebody may interpret that differently than you are. So
Absolutely.
maybe, maybe it is a case of, okay, let's go to this next meeting, see where this starts to gel. And then maybe it's a case of, okay, as a committee, let's put together our thoughts. We think the space is perceived as this. We recommend maintaining this, and we think these are potential good ideas to consider. You know, that it's more concrete feedback. You know, and we can have that conversation at this committee to maybe put that together.
And I just realized I'm gonna be out of town for the next DDA meeting, so anybody here wanna go, just to kind of make sure things are, even though you'd be going as a citizen, not as an HPC member.
Because who doesn't like being up at 7:30 and sitting in a meeting?
Yeah, I'm not even look.
Yeah.
I'm usually at the office by 7.
Yeah, a good reminder on that. You had the courtesy to send a reminder that we're invited. Please do it again.
Okay. Yeah, Lori had intended to be there, but because she's under the weather, that really kind of, I think, has scrambled her whole day.
All right, next, Robert's House property discussion. I have nothing on that myself.
I'm working a little bit on speculation here, but it seems like Steve would love to dive into writing grants, especially for that particular property and such. And I know that's on our work plan. I did touch base with, and this kind of ties into the next one, the state grant opportunities for the baggage building. Sorry, Amy, for the purpose of doing minutes, the update on the item 4I is I have got nothing new to report. And part of that was because I wasn't sure what was going on with Bergstrom Park, how much effort do we put into that? Is somebody saying we have to move the building? So I just, and given everything else I was juggling, it didn't rise to the top there. So back to touching base with Kimberly, who is our city grant writer. We were both very comfortable if Steve wants to start writing some of these other grants to do some of that legwork for us, since he clearly has the passion and the time. He just cannot submit them without the city reviewing them and such, since I feel like we have to be the entity, that manages the grant and stuff. So Laurie had reached out to Steve about setting a meeting for us to kind of talk about some of that. And even like the whole concept of doing the preservation plan, and instead that's when we got that email back from Steve. So I still don't have a meeting set with everybody to potentially leverage Steve's talents towards some of that other work. So that's
And I did talk to him about that yesterday when we were at the cemetery, and made sure he understood that he can't just send this thing in without you guys, your full approvals. So.
yeah, because he I just he's definitely a go-getter, and sometimes he's more go-getter even than we're able to accommodate sometimes at a staff level. He's just threw steps out there, and it's like, but we have like committee buy-in we need to get.
Yeah, he's just way too used to working with Park County, which just lets him do whatever he wants. A little bit different over there.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me at all. I'm probably on multiple levels, because I've gotten the impression he would really love to dive into getting the Roberts House listed, have a historical designation at the state level, which means getting rid of the additions on there. But have we had it cleared for asbestos? We need to get a demo permit. What's the budget for any disposal? Yeah, there's things like that need to be thought out and allocated.
Anything else on that one?
No, so that's kind of 4H and 4I. Sorry, I looked ahead on it.
So are we done then? Can go to reports? All right. Anybody, Eric, have anything to report?
I do not.
David?
I think I've done enough talking.
Barry, got anything to say?
I do. I did meet with Drew of Adventures and had like a 45-minute visit with him on 4th of July, and he shared what he wants to do. It was a very positive meeting. And he says they want to do historically a correct door on the building. I don't know how far he is on the application for changing the building, but he said it would be mesh in. It's not going to jump out for what they want to do to store vehicles or whatever. But it was a very positive meeting in the park with Drew.
So this is the Brazen Head building, and we have not seen any type of application come back in to city staff. So he's probably still just embracing the summer and the rest of his operations. That's always one of those major kind of projects to get your approvals in place.
Mighty Midland will be at the theater every weekend, Saturday, Sunday at 11 for $10. So if you haven't seen the Mighty Midland, you have no excuse. Every weekend to the end of August, Saturday, Sunday, at 11, $10 to get in. So if you haven't seen it, go for it. It's so loaded with information, well done. It's supposedly up for an award in Amsterdam for doing what the producers and all did. So that's number 2. Number 3, Donna Finickel's retiring September 1. We're going to have a farewell appreciation at the library on August 18th from 1 to 2:30. If you're interested in thanking Donna Finickel for almost 20 years of being a supporter of heritage, the area, you're welcome to attend on the 18th. Lincoln Park Public Library downstairs,
What time was that?
1 to 2:30,
1 to 2:30? Okay.
and downstairs of the library. That's all I have.
Will there be a DVD or anything of the Mighty Midland?
It's in process with Aztec Media to have the DVD of the Mighty Midland. Yes, it's coming.
Good, thank you.
If you don't have the Dude Ranch one, it is available at the gift shop.
What date is the Mighty Midland showing?
Every weekend, all of August.
Oh, okay.
Saturday and Sunday both.
Of every weekend, all the way to the end of August.
Thank you.
At 11, $10 to get in.
Okay, anything else for member? I have no reports, additional reports. Councilmember liaison report is not here, so
And I'm not aware of anything, because he was in attendance this morning at the DDA meeting as well. So he didn't mention anything to me during that time, so I think we're probably good on that.
okay. And the planning director report.
It's that time of year again where we start to plan for budget and work plan for the following year. So that's why in your packet, I included for you a copy of the 2024 work plan and then a status sheet on the budget for this year for funds that we have expended. So just, that's where we are for the year. And related to that work plan, talked briefly with Laurie about maybe restructuring that ever so slightly so that there's things that are like ongoing, there's things that are project specific, to maybe restructure just the work plan a little bit so it's easier to maybe follow in terms of like what are our projects versus what are just kind of background activities that this committee does, you know, as part of being a committee. So for this next meeting, I fully expect to have a more detailed conversation. If there's things you would like to have considered as part of this work plan, we could even start an item or a section of it that says, you know, future agenda or future work plan items. So that way we're not worried about not remembering them, you know, that because it really is about prioritizing and where are we spending our time and resources and how do we successfully accomplish things, you know, so that's.
So how does our work plan differ from our preservation plan?
The preservation plan, you think like the comprehensive plan for the city of Woodland Park, it's like this overarching kind of guiding document with some policies and such. That's what that preservation plan does, but on an annual basis, to bring that plan to life, we're focused on these things. So that's why the state keeps telling us, hey, you need to think about a preservation plan, because they're looking for that overarching kind of document or policy guide for the work and activities of this committee.
And that's something that, just to clarify, that's something that's kind of happening behind the scenes of this committee meeting. That's you and the preservation plan.
No, that's just an idea of like, maybe it's time to fully give that thing some traction. Yeah, no,
Because my understanding is that from that email from Steve, that the preservation plan is being developed by you, him and Lori, as opposed to the entire committee.
we merely floated the idea of we should talk about possibly leveraging Steve to work on that. That's where the conversation stopped.
Okay.
So Steve took it another step
Oh,
in his
okay,
email.
okay.
Yeah, no, we literally like, let's start a conversation. That's what Lori brought to him.
Okay. So we need Lori here to discuss that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that was my report. Yes, so if you do think of things that you would like, especially like within the next week while it's so fresh, if you can get that to CJ. That would
Well,
be
for me, it's
helpful.
a fire mitigation. wildfire mitigation. That's my,
I'd like to see a few more buildings historically identified. Next year, maybe the church for sure, but at least we haven't identified any new buildings per se. Steve has been encouraging the one over by the opposite side of the Fiesta Mexicana as one of the earlier buildings. But see, I don't know whether those buildings were ever identified in the original plan to check when they did the research.
Well, that's what I wanted to clarify. What do you mean by historically identified, or do you mean
Are they-
designated?
Are they originally on the original survey of what?
So
they did
inventory.
Inventory that's already been inventoried, but they have not, well, there might be an application from the church people, and then we can follow through with the identification and do a plaque, another plaque. In other words, we're doing things in the public eye, identifying historic properties. Yeah,
You're actually talking about having them get a designation.
right, I wanted to get, encourage them, Dave working on these people that get that building identified.
Designated. I'm
Designated.
picking on the terminology,
Right,
Larry, I'm sorry.
Make me correct, but designated, that's, that as a, project for next year for sure, but at least maybe the building west of Fiesta Mexicana, supposedly that Steve said is one of the oldest in the, but I don't know whether it was under the original survey, whatever that, how far that spread in this
Yeah.
rectangle, whatever.
You can look at both of those inventories or surveys that were done there through the city website. When you go to the Historic Preservation Committee page, there's a way to get to what has been inventoried. Both inventories are available. So it's
I know
possible.
we didn't cross the highway or anything, and there's stuff across the highway that'd be nice and all that.
So to do another survey to expand, to take in more buildings, the past two were done with grant monies and such to get those done. I know we're back to grants. So that's, to bring in the outside resources and technical expertise to do those surveys and inventories and compile all that information. So that's one aspect of it. And then there's, like, through those surveys, buildings that are identified as having historical significance, to actually work with that property owner to say, hey, yes, I want to be truly designated as a local designated landmark, or as a state designated, or even national designated historic structure. So those are a little bit different things.
And see, I'll check on that, but I'd like also, not the Maytag house, but where Bob Maytag lived, and where the heritage of that building, that the Kennedys stayed there overnight in 1959. This is trivia, but the building itself is unique in design and not the usual building of that time. The interior branch, but in the heart of town. And Bob Maytag, that's where he lived.
Which one was that?
Okay, I think on Bauman, goes north and south. It's the one, it takes up the whole block. There's the Maytag house over here, but this is the one, I think it's on Bauman, faces Bauman.
Addresses are helpful.
Well, you had designed that garage for those people on the corner.
Well, the garage, yeah, I did a garage, but that's not a historical building.
Right, but across the street was.
Exactly across the street from,
Yeah,
there's a
big
couple,
yellow, and then there's the cottage or the guest house, and
That's the Maytag house.
that's where they put it.
But this is where Bob Maytag lived. It was in the big Maytag house. Faces south, is a big chunk of property.
You and I will have to look at a map together sometime, or stop in and see CJ and kind of get him, we'll
just
figure it out, but we-
distribute the address.
yeah.
You walk by there all the time, I
But
drive
the
by.
trip will be on, I still am researching, whatever, because I just found out the name of the guy that had the pool built on Rampart, Joe Willis. I mean, what this information, and who owned the log cabin where Pizza Hut is, or AJ's is, there's a log cabin there, it was Hogenstein. I mean, it's just worthless information, but it's all in the data bank. I'm still trying to get information when I'm visiting locals who are here. But I'm still trying to substantiate that the Kennedys stayed in that house in 59, because Bob Maytag was a major player with the Democratic Party. And it gives a little historic significance to the area. I'm sure the Kennedys were in Woodland Park in 59. But the question is, did they really spend the night with Bob Maytag?
Didn't you interviewed Maytag? You did an
I
interview. didn't you?
did Bob Maytag.
So is that
And
documented?
he was so politically correct. I said, Bob, did the Kennedys stay with you? The word is via all your neighbors that the Kennedys stayed with you in 59 as they're doing their campaign. And Bob said, he didn't say yes, and he didn't say no. A politician for sure. He could have said yes, he could have said no, but he didn't say either.
Well, I have one more exciting little piece of news that you made me think of as far as historic structures and historic things that happen. Another discovery that Steve has made is Reuben Goldmark. Have you heard about any of this? Okay, he was a famous composer from the East Coast. He actually was an instructor for George Gershwin. He had to come out to Colorado Springs for health reasons, ended up in Woodland Park. And in the Victorian house on Gunnison and Park, I believe, you know that little Victorian, right at the end of County Road, that little Victorian
Yes, yeah.
house. Reuben Goldmark decided that he wanted to create a new musical sound that was unique to the United States as opposed to the symphonic sounds of Europe. And he wrote, not politically correct, but it is the name of the piece of music, the Negro Rhapsody, which was the precursor to jazz in the United States. Happened right here in Woodland Park. And in that house.
We need that house identified.
We need that house
But that's
identified.
another survey, another grant.
It's on the survey, and it's already on the survey, if I'm getting the right place. And then we'll get it.
Yeah.
We'll have to check that.
So he's already talked to people at the library. They're going to do a display on this. And he's also he's also found the sheet music and is going to see if the Symphony Above the Clouds will play the music at some point. It's that piece of music, which was created here,
Starting the jazz.
starting the jazz movement.
Yeah.
And you can actually listen to that piece of music
I
on
couldn't
YouTube.
identify the jazz.
No, you couldn't. Did you listen
See
to
if I
it?
could know another.
Yeah. You
Joe
could hear a little
Harmonic
bit of
or
Gershwin in it though, couldn't
Yeah,
you?
mhm, definitely.
Yeah.
So back to the work plan for starting our work on that for 2025. I'm going to give you guys a date. If you have ideas, please get them to us by next Friday, August 16th. People work better with deadlines. So, I mean, obviously you can bring stuff up in a subsequent meeting, but it's helpful if you get it to us ahead of time, because we'll throw it on the list and out to the whole group. So people have a chance to take a peek at it prior to when we sit down in our next meeting.
So there's no public comment because there's no public here.
Not even online.
Are we adjourned?
Unless Amy has anything.
Nope.
Okay.
See you later, Amy.
So, yeah, I guess we're adjourned at what, 5 p.m., right on target.
I was gonna ask you that. Thought was correct.